Now I want you to take a look at the title of this video and read it quite carefully. It says Tom Brady's GOAT case is a fraud. It does not say that Tom Brady himself is a fraud. On the contrary, actually. We're not here to argue that Tom Brady is a bad quarterback, not by any stretch. He has many legitimate accomplishments. You don't play 21 complete seasons over a 23-year career by accident. Clearly, he is highly intelligent. He is coachable. He plays within the system. He is accurate, especially in short and intermediate areas. He takes care of the football and generally refrains from making terrible decisions with it. He has the right height for the position. He has at times taken less money to help build up the talent around him. He has all the counting stat records, and yeah, he's got the most Super Bowl rings. The problem is that the NFL talking heads, and that's not just limited to people on TV and other streaming platforms, have this supposed open and shut case that Tom Brady is easily not only the greatest quarterback of all time, but the greatest football player of all time, full stop. And the Brady worship, and that's what it is in many cases, worship, has grown almost cult-like, wherein anyone who might question dear leader's stature must be shouted down, shut down, and would be in need of a sanity check. Trying to shut down debate, not wanting or even willing to hear what the other side has to say, yeah, that's when you ought to know that it must be questioned. And not just questioned, but thoroughly debunked. And it's not just the presence of these talking heads that brings us to this place. Theoretically, we watch football with our own eyes, I know I do, and come to our own conclusions rather than simply being told what to think. I see a mostly competent, occasionally borderline great quarterback at work for those 21 seasons. The single greatest of all time though? The GOAT without question? Nuh-uh. That's what I'm here today to debunk. I'm Pete McCockiner with CCC Productions, here to present you the following. Tom Brady's GOAT case is a fraud. Thank you so much for taking the time to click on this video and not immediately clicking off. This is sure to upset a few people, so I'm hopeful you will stay with me all the way through. If you haven't already, I humbly ask that you take a moment to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon for future notifications. We do videos on both the sports world and the entertainment world. Clearly today we're going with sports. I've been looking forward to finally making this video, and with Tom Brady seemingly officially retired, this felt like the right time. Thank you again so much for joining us, and on with the video. Even though I will certainly be bringing up other quarterbacks in this video, what I will not be doing is naming anyone else as the greatest of all time. That could be its own video for another time. This is clearly long enough as it is. And with that said, as you sit watching now, I'm sure there has been at least one extra thought that has gone through my head that I wish I included in this video. So while I will certainly be thorough, I cannot say that I will be all-encompassing. Getting all my thoughts down into something resembling cohesion was laborious enough. Anything else you would like to add would be welcome, and I would direct you to the comments section to do so. And naturally, anything you would like to subtract, myself included, is also welcome. Before we dive into the case against Tom Brady being the so-called GOAT, there are two quick things to talk about. Here is the first. I realize that I'm not the first person by any means to put out a video like this on YouTube. In fact, any of you who have seen this kind of video or sought it out in the first place may recognize Barry McCockiner as the most preeminent purveyor of them all. I certainly think he is. I love Barry's content, even outside of his Tom Brady related videos. His style of comedy hits the right notes for me, but that comedy doesn't obscure his knowledge. That said, I became attuned to his channel because of his anti-Brady screeds. I don't know Barry and I don't wish to speak for him, but it's fairly evident that he simply doesn't like Tom Brady, point blank. That's not where I'm at. I have nothing personal for or against Tom Brady the person. We're going to concentrate solely on the football field and its surrounding activities. So if you're looking for that exact style that Barry brings, that's not quite what you're going to get. I easily could have and would have made this video at some point, whether I ever came across Barry or not. But the fact that I did gave me the proper closing motivation I needed to push through and make the damn thing. It's safe to say that Barry was an inspiration, and as I mentioned, he does bring a lot of knowledge to the table, knowledge I will be referencing at times in this video. There's also going to be some overlap in our observations. I'm not going to leave something out of this video that I think is important just because Barry said it first, but I never ape anything from him without explicitly mentioning so. All that said, I believe this case is going to do more than simply stand side by side with Barry's. For one thing, unfortunately, in some of his other videos, Barry falls victim not only to some of the points we're going to make in this video, but some of his own points as well, and we'll get to those. But on top of all that, after the Buccaneers defeated the Eagles in the 2021 playoffs, Barry posted a video where he declared that Tom Brady is indeed the GOAT. It should be noted that the Eagles are Barry's favorite team. I'd like to think this was an elaborate jinx, for indeed, they lost the next week at home, then proceeded to go 8-9 the following season with another home playoff loss. Since Barry's declaration, the Bucs went 8-11, but he's stuck to the company line, so to speak. I still love you, Barry, and I watch all of your videos except for some of the NBA ones because I couldn't care less about the NBA. But the fact that I watch anything NBA related is a testament to you. But you joined the bandwagon of conflating team success with quarterback ability. And that hurt, man. That hurts. Seriously though, subscribe to Barry McCockiner. He is awesome. We needed to get all that out of the way. This is not a reaction video to Barry. We're just another voice in the crowd. But I love Barry's content, and for realsies, subscribe to his channel. Now here is the second, hopefully quick thing, which serves as the overall argument I'm making here. And I begin this argument by stating that, with a few exceptions, quarterbacks in general are just highly overrated. The sports media and the minions who gobble that information up like Skittles constantly beat the drum over the fact that quarterback is the most important position in sports. It certainly is an important position, but more than hockey goalies? I think not. How many times has a mediocre at best hockey team risen to the Stanley Cup Finals on the back of a red-hot goalie? How about baseball pitchers? I realize many individuals take up this role, but if a team has an unhittable pitcher one day, one run gets the job done. What's more is that quarterbacks sit on the bench approximately half the game, an argument that can be used against pitchers too, I must concede. Football has the most starters of any major sport, and it's not even close, yet one position takes the mantle of by far the most important not just in the sport, but any other sport? I disagree. Take the greatest quarterback of all time, whomever you may presume that to be. Pair him up with the greatest running back of all time. Line up the three greatest wide receivers that ever lived, give them the best pass-catching tight end of all time, and put them all on the field together. This team would be completely unstoppable, right? To top it all off, give them a terrible offensive line. Now what? What can this offense realistically accomplish? No running lanes? No time in the pocket? All-time great wide receivers reduced to blocking for a quarterback having to scramble for his life? Yeah, this wouldn't work. On offense, anyway, nothing is more important than the offensive line. Without one, an offense simply cannot function. Then there's this whole notion of quarterbacks leading a team. Now, once upon a time, there was some truth to that. Quarterbacks would call the play in the huddle, hence the alternate term for quarterbacks of signal calling. That is certainly not the case anymore. Coaches call all the plays now, with quarterbacks occasionally calling audibles. But if a team wins a game 9-3, the talking heads state that quarterback X led the team to victory, when it could be more accurately described as the defense leading the team to victory. But even that is misleading, because just like the offense, the defense is on the bench for approximately half the game. Who was there for all of it? The head coach and the rest of the coaching staff that literally lead or helm the team. But toss all that into the trash. Nope, it's just the quarterback, every time. And that now calls into question what I believe is the single dumbest stat in all of sports: quarterback win-loss record. I used to think that win-loss record for pitchers in Major League Baseball was the worst stat in sports, but the baseball community is coming around to that fact enough that I think we can spare it now. Although we still get a Cy Young stinker based on win-loss record, I'm looking at you, Rick Porcello, in 2016. A new, correct standard was set in 2010, when Felix Hernandez rightfully won the AL Cy Young despite a 13-12 record. His record is a byproduct of his team, not his abilities. His wins put him outside the top 10 in the American League, but he led the league in ERA, innings pitched, starts, batters faced, and advanced stats such as pitching runs, adjusted pitching wins, base out runs saved, base out wins saved, win probability added, situational wins saved, and pitcher wins above replacement, not to mention many other top 10 finishes in other categories. That 13-12 record is about as useful as a towel 200 feet under the surface of the ocean. And it's the same damn thing for quarterbacks. I could not possibly care less about what Tom Brady's record against Peyton Manning is, because it's not a thing that exists in the real world. I do care about what the Patriots' record is against the Colts, because they're the ones playing each other. At no point are Tom Brady and Peyton Manning on the field at the same time during active competition. They're not playing freaking ping pong here. This is a team sport where 11 players on offense line up against 11 players on defense. It's not just Brady, it's not just Manning. Did Mac Jones beat Josh Allen on Monday Night Football in 2021? Hell no. He threw 3 freaking passes the whole game. If you need me to do that math for you, that is less than 1 pass per quarter. But he's credited with the win when he literally did less than just about everybody else who took the field that day for New England. Everybody else. If Scott Norwood makes that kick, what? All of a sudden Jim Kelly beats Jeff Hostetler? No! Why is Jim Kelly the only player who gets hung with the L on his record? Why doesn't Cornelius Bennett take the L? Or Will Wolford? Or Mark Kelso? Or hell, why not Scott Norwood? It is, by light years, the laziest form of football analysis, while simultaneously being the most prevalent. If you can't tell by now, this drives me up a wall. This works against Tom Brady too. You have the NFL's official YouTube page posting this tripe. Cam Newton beats Tom Brady. 2 hours, 7 minutes, and 8 seconds. I sat and watched the entire game, and I never once saw Tom Brady and Cam Newton directly compete against each other. Tom Brady's opponent, alongside his 10 teammates on any given play, was the Carolina defense. Likewise, Cam Newton's opponent, alongside his 10 teammates on any given play, was the New England defense. One of the big claims of Joe Flacco's career is that he beat Tom Brady twice on the road in the playoffs. In one of those games, the 2012 AFC Championship game, Flacco performed well as part of his miracle month, going 21 for 36 for 240 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no picks. But he didn't do it by himself. The other game, in the 2009 Divisional Round, Ray Rice, after some great blocking from his line, ran in an 83-yard touchdown on the first play of the game. Flacco went 4 for 10 with 34 yards, an interception, and a 10.0 passer rating, spiking the ball on every play instead of doing whatever he did in that game would just about quadruple his passer rating. He did basically nothing, but he beat Tom Brady. Even this past season, when the 49ers stomped all over the Buccaneers, all the talking heads could bloviate on and on about was how Brock Purdy beat Tom Brady in his first career start. He did no such thing. The 49ers were a vastly superior team to the Buccaneers, and the team played great. Minus a disastrous quarterback who constantly turned the ball over, the 49ers were always winning that game. I'm a 49er fan, damn it, and since Brock Purdy is a 49er, I'm rooting for him every time the ball is in his hands. But the talking heads' decision to ignore our other amazing players was actually making me start to hate him. So no, Tom Brady didn't lose that game against the Panthers. The Patriots did. He didn't lose either of those games to the Ravens. The Patriots did. And he certainly didn't lose that game to the 49ers. The Buccaneers did. If he lost it, then his teammates lost it just as much, and they too should get a win-loss record on their Pro Football Reference pages. Gah! Okay, mini rant over. On with it. Here is a list of the most overrated quarterbacks of all time according to, well, me. Joe Namath, who aired the ball out a lot and did so to the tune of many yards but also many interceptions. Buoyed by the Broadway Joe persona, and a single game that he guaranteed his team would win. A game where he attempted 28 passes for 17 completions, while turning around to hand the ball off 43 times to supplement a defense that forced 5 turnovers. But what was the story? Namath led the victory. Namath was MVP when a whole host of players, not solely limited to Matt Snell, George Sauer, Johnny Sample, Randy Beverly, Ralph Baker, or any offensive lineman would have been a better choice. We've got guys like Terry Bradshaw and Troy Aikman, terrible players early in their careers who just so happened to blossom when the team around them improved. Go figure. Joe Montana, the clutch gene for certain, athletic in and out of the pocket, but no special overall quality whose everlasting legacy is having 4 Super Bowl rings, when someone like Jesse Sapolu, also the owner of 4 Super Bowl rings while playing at an extremely high level, is completely forgotten. Ask yourself this: could the Jets have won Super Bowl III with, say, Billy Kilmer at quarterback? Probably. Could the Steelers have won all those Super Bowls with Jim Hart at quarterback? Probably. Could the Cowboys have won all those Super Bowls with Jim Kelly, also overrated by the way, at quarterback? Probably. How about the 49ers? If they swapped Montana with Dan Marino, would Montana be what he is today? How many rings would Dan Marino have? This is all to say that circumstances matter a lot, and that well more often than not, a great team makes a quarterback rather than a great quarterback makes a team. This needs repeating and inscribing. Well more often than not, a great team makes a quarterback rather than a great quarterback makes a team. Super Bowls are won by teams. We mentioned Joe Namath's pedestrian performance in Super Bowl III. Here are some other pedestrian performances by quarterbacks on the winning team. Performances that are easily repeated by any quarterback with reasonable ability. That's not to say that these performances were terrible, and it's also not to say that performances left off this list were phenomenal. Pedestrian is the exact right word to describe it, and you may look at a couple of these and wonder why they're here, including a 328-yard 4-touchdown performance by Brady, and a 288-yard 2-touchdown performance by Drew Brees. When you're averaging 9 yards or less per completion, let alone per attempt, that's pedestrian. It's easily replicable. Any quarterback of reasonable ability with the same talent around him could at the very least do the same. What did those performances all have in common though? At the very least, a highly potent, if not excellent, offensive line. So yeah, spare me this notion that quarterback is the most important position in sports, especially in the modern era where, by and large, quarterbacks are asked to make the simplest of passes off the simplest of reads, where the vast majority of the game's rules favor them. We'll get to all that in due time. Okay, now that is out of the way, on to Tom Brady, and we'll start all the way back to his college days. Clearly, he was a good enough high school quarterback to get into the University of Michigan, a historically elite program on the precipice of something big. And that something big came by Brady's sophomore season, in the form of a split national championship. Brady's contributions during those 2 seasons? 20 pass attempts, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. So yeah, basically nothing, as he sat behind Brian Griese during the championship season, and behind the immortal Scott Dreisbeck, whatever it was, the year before. He started his junior season and he was okay, not good enough to secure the full-time starter gig as a senior, where he split time with future third baseman Drew Henson. And when Brady graduated and Henson took over as a junior, he performed better than Tom Brady had in any season. So, to put it generously, coming out of college, Tom Brady was a run-of-the-mill quarterback with no special physical skills to speak of that could function at a minimally acceptable level if given just the right circumstances. Spoiler alert, that never changed. Yet, for some reason, he was drafted in the 6th round by the New England Patriots when, in all reality, he was more suited to be undrafted. But the man pulling the trigger for the Patriots, Bill Belichick, likely saw something there that he could mold. Another spoiler alert, Bill Belichick will be a major piece of this story moving forward. Behind Drew Bledsoe, Tom Brady saw very little action as a rookie. In his 2nd season, he was the top backup, but under no circumstances did he pose any kind of threat to Bledsoe's position. After all, if he was truly better than Bledsoe, then he could have at least challenged him in training camp. Then Mo Lewis basically imploded Bledsoe, and Brady got his chance to start. And just like he was at Michigan, he was fine. Less than 7 yards per attempt, less than 11 yards per completion, passable, playing within the system. But the Patriots went on a run at the end of the season where they won 6 games in 7 weeks. They didn't go 6-1 though, they went 6-0. See, between 1999 and 2001, the NFL had 31 teams. Therefore, there was at least one team on a bye every single week of the season. Initially, the Patriots were scheduled to be on the Week 17 bye, but Week 2 of the NFL season was disrupted for reasons you really ought to know about that we won't mention explicitly here. The way it worked out then was that they played Week 5, had a bye week in Week 16, then played Week 17, and had another bye week. Pretty decent advantage, I should say. After that second bye week, they beat the Raiders at home, the Steelers in Pittsburgh, and the Rams in the Super Bowl by a grand total of a whopping 13 points. We'll get to those games in more detail, but suffice it to say that the team's success kept Brady in the starting role, especially when the Patriots were able to get a pick in the top half of the 1st round for Drew Bledsoe. And as the team continued to play well, Brady did his thing of hanging around and not screwing anything up. This was also the beginning of his incredible amount of luck, another topic covered by Barry McCockiner. We'll be calling out Brady's lucky moments as well. And yeah, the Patriots became a powerhouse during this stretch of time, winning another Super Bowl after both the 2003 and 2004 seasons with Brady along for the ride. He was in the absolute right place at the right time, and using his attributes that we mentioned earlier, his intelligence, his coachability, his short-term accuracy, not being a turnover machine, his knowledge of the offense, he was right for that team and made his contributions to those Super Bowls. No one is here to take any of that away from him. But we're also not going to give him outsized credit either. He played his role like everyone else on the field. His being the quarterback gives him no extra credit. Any great number of quarterbacks could have won with those teams that Bill Belichick put together, so long as they met those minimal standards that Tom Brady did. Not every quarterback, mind you. Perusing the quarterback ranks of 2004, I would say that outside of the superstar types, all these guys could have won these Super Bowls with the Patriots. And that's leaving superstars like Peyton Manning and Brett Favre out. Imagine if Tom Brady was drafted somewhere else. Say instead of Bill Belichick and the Patriots taking him, that he got his wish to go to his favorite team, the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers did indeed take a quarterback, Tim Rattay, in the 7th round. Other than being 4 inches shorter than Brady, there wasn't then, nor is there anything now, that would truly differentiate Rattay from Brady. But in San Francisco, Brady would have joined a team that was slightly on the upswing, but that was on its way to becoming an absolute train wreck. If you think one player, even a quarterback, could have stemmed that tide, you don't understand how football works. He likely wouldn't have contributed any more to that impending train wreck than anyone else, but he certainly wouldn't have stopped it. Now, I can hear what some of you are saying. Well, you can say that for any quarterback or any football player, not just Tom Brady. And to that, I say, yes, I agree with you. That's rather the entire point of all of this, that Brady was in the right place at the right time and fulfilled his minimal duties very well in not becoming a hindrance to his team. Those teams rode together. They were a team. In fact, they started the tradition of not being individually introduced at the Super Bowl, a tradition that has been fully adopted by every single team that has made the Super Bowl since. It was, and always has been, the New England Patriots, not the New England Bradys. So I keep talking about Brady's skill set and how it's minimally sufficient toward overall team success when the surrounding team is as high quality as his have always been. Check out this throw from Aaron Rodgers during the 2015 playoffs. He is a right-handed quarterback sprinting to his left. Before he has done anything with the ball, he has already demonstrated that he can do something that Tom Brady cannot do. Then, as he starts to go down, he throws the ball 70 yards across his body with pinpoint accuracy for a game-tying touchdown. The Packers lost that game because the Cardinals won the overtime coin toss, something the Patriots never did once in the playoffs while Tom Brady was their starting quarterback. Now, this is the single greatest throw I've ever seen anyone make. You might say that it's not an entirely fair comparison. I would agree if it wasn't a hive mind mentality that Tom Brady is the undisputed GOAT. If you're the GOAT, you've got to be able to make a throw like this, or at least give anyone the mere impression that you would have a snowball's chance in hell of making a throw like this. If not specifically this throw, then something else that would give you the kind of separation that is required to be the actual undisputed best at what you do, better than anyone who has ever done it. But this is one throw, and someone like Aaron Rodgers makes amazing plays like this that make you shake your head and say things like, only Aaron Rodgers could have done that. Then consider someone like Patrick Mahomes, who is a true unicorn that, if he was a movie character, would be considered an overpowered Mary Sue, except that he's really, truly real, and we see the things he can do on a football field that can't even be replicated in video games. Guys like Brett Favre and John Elway, who can rip a football through any conditions. A guy like Steve Young, who combined athleticism, a scrambling threat, and deadly accuracy in the face of any defense. A guy like Kurt Warner, who I'm convinced could hit Franklin Roosevelt's forehead on a dime from 50 yards away. A guy like Ken Stabler, who brought real ruggedness to the position during a time when defenses could essentially ragdoll him. Or this, even this, that's Jacoby Myers, a wide receiver. Yeah, Brady can probably make that throw, but he certainly doesn't do so with any regularity. Nope, for the majority of his career, Tom Brady has almost always made the safe, reliable throw, a vast majority of which don't travel more than 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. Certainly, there are exceptions to this, especially when he had Randy Moss in tow. There's nothing wrong with this. It is highly effective toward winning, and I don't fault him for it, especially when his physical abilities are so limited in comparison to guys like Peyton Manning and Dan Marino. This is what I would coach Tom Brady to do. It works, especially when your 53-man roster is so damn talented. But that is not what being the GOAT is made of. If the Patriots didn't have the rosters they've had, Brady would have immediately been tagged with the game manager or system quarterback label. A label that says, you don't mess up, but you don't win either. That at the end of the day is derisive. Also, quarterbacks don't win games, teams do. This will never happen, but we need to stop ascribing team success to only one position, especially as the true heartbeat of the team, the offensive line, goes completely unnoticed. And then there are the oh so many rules that the NFL has implemented to assist the offense, and specifically quarterbacks. Take a look at the career leaderboard for most passing statistics. You'll notice that the vast majority of the names on these leaderboards played during the 21st century. Fun fact, kids, football actually existed before the year 2000, except that it was a much harder time on the offensive players, not because things were tipped against them, but because they were more balanced. Defenses had a chance. But here is a list of all the changes in the rules that have helped offenses, and by extension quarterbacks, over the past 50 years. And while I couldn't find the specific years these were implemented, rule changes for the offensive line have now allowed linemen other than the center to line up slightly off the line of scrimmage, and linemen are now allowed to be slightly downfield on passing plays before they are penalized. These small differences make a huge impact. Some, if not most, of these rule changes were made for the betterment of the game, and I am not advocating for a universal return to the original rules. Some rules were even adopted during this time that benefited the defense, generally involving crackback and high-low blocks, but at a much lower ratio. The point here is that players from the era when the old rules were in place, particularly on offense and particularly at quarterback, had a much harder time of things. This, and the prevalence of the short passing game, which essentially qualify as long play handoffs, otherwise known as the Tom Brady special, have contributed to the modern quarterback having it much easier than his earlier brethren. I can hear you thinking, well then, these rules help all quarterbacks, not just Tom Brady. You would be right. And again, that's somewhat the larger point. No quarterback in NFL history has benefited from being in this era like Tom Brady has, both because of the talent that has surrounded him and based on the competition his teams have gotten to face. In 2002, the Houston Texans joined the NFL, and the NFL went to 32 teams. In doing so, they went to the 8-division format that we know today, with 4 teams in each division. From those 32 teams, here are the teams in the bottom half of the overall standings between the years 2002 and 2019. Every single division in football is represented in this list, but only 2 divisions are represented with 3 teams, the NFC West and the AFC East, which is where the Patriots play. You can see that their division wasn't exactly filled with powerhouses that threaten them in any way. But you might argue that their records are worse because they have to play the Patriots twice a year. that does play a tiny role. So let's change this equation just a little bit. Here we have a different set of standings, separated by division. These are every NFL team's record between 2002 and 2019 in games played outside their division. While it's true that the Jets, Bills, and Dolphins do see a slight uptick in their win percentage, it is just that, a slight uptick. Over the course of those 18 seasons, neither of them proved they could win more games outside the AFC East than they lost. The only other division that can say that is once again the NFC West. Then there's divisions like the NFC South and the AFC West that boasts 3 separate teams that claim winning records outside their division. And a division like the NFC West is being hurt by teams going into long slumps. The Seahawks made 3 Super Bowls during this period. The Cardinals made 1, the 49ers made 2, and the Rams made 2. The Bills, Dolphins, and Jets managed a combined 2 championship game appearances, both made by the Jets in equally quirky back-to-back seasons. Compare this to the 1980s NFC, where extremely talented teams in the first half of the decade, like the Philadelphia Eagles, only made it to the Super Bowl once, and the Dallas Cowboys never could. The San Francisco 49ers ruled the roost, but they made it to only 4 Super Bowls. And it's weird to say only, because winning the NFC Championship game 40% of the time within 1 decade is an awesome accomplishment on the face of it. But if the 49ers had the same path as the Patriots, they would have made it to even more. But on top of the competition from the Eagles and Cowboys, they had to deal with the likes of the Washington Redskins, the New York Giants, the Los Angeles Rams, even the New Orleans Saints, and the Chicago Bears, owners of the greatest single-season team in NFL history in 1985. All these teams were better than anything the New York Jets, Miami Dolphins, or Buffalo Bills could conjure up over a 19-year period. Again, never minding the 2 fluky AFC title game appearances by the Jets, one of which of course came at the expense of the Patriots. No, this was a gauntlet, especially come playoff time, and these were all physically taxing games. No fluff, no finesse, lots of hitting. This continued on into the 90s as well. In a 17-year stretch from 1980 to 1996, the Oakland/Los Angeles Raiders won 2 Super Bowls. Every other Super Bowl was won by the NFC, including an astonishing 13 consecutive, many of them utterly devastating blowouts. Getting to and winning the Super Bowl is always earned, but these teams really earned it. And if the 49ers, or even another team from this era, faced less stiff competition, you know, the kind the Patriots have faced, they would have won countless Super Bowls, and their quarterback, perhaps someone like Phil Simms, would be considered the GOAT. Obviously, that sounds quite preposterous to us now, but it wouldn't seem so had it actually gone down that way. Then this video would be about Phil Simms. But it's more than just having played in the comically weak AFC East. It's also the ridiculous amount of scheduling luck that the Patriots received over the years beyond the division. The NFL scheduling system since 2002 is a bit lengthy but rather simple. We'll use the Patriots as our example. Over the course of a 16-game season, the Patriots will play each of the teams in its division home and away for a total of 6 games. They will then match up with another division in its conference. For argument's sake, let's say that's the AFC North. 2 of these games will be at home and 2 away for a grand total of 10 games. They will also match up with a division from the other conference. Again, for argument's sake, let's say that's the NFC East. Again, 2 of these games will be at home and 2 away for a grand total of 14 games. The final 2 games are filled in by the remaining divisions in the AFC, the South and the West in this case. If the Patriots finished first in their division, as they often did in that den of not quite mediocrity, Then they would match up with the other first place finishers in those divisions, 1 game at home and 1 away, for the final total of 16 games. If they finished second, they would match up with the other second place finishers, same if they finished third, same if they finished last. In 2021, the NFL added a 17th game to the schedule. Once again, using the Patriots as an example, they would match up with a team from a different NFC division, let's say the NFC West, who finished in the same position within their division, first versus first, second versus second, and so on. Either all AFC teams in a given season would host the 17th game, or all NFC teams would host. All of this is rotated season to season, so 14 matchups are written in stone, while the other 2, and as of 2021, 3 games, will only be determined by where every team finishes in its division the season prior. Based on these parameters, with the Patriots regularly winning their division, one might suspect that they would in turn regularly play one of the most difficult schedules. But this is the Patriots with Tom Brady we're talking about, so of course that hasn't been the case, and we have the numbers to back that up. Pro Football Reference offers a strength of schedule metric that is pretty simple. The better your opponents based on their respective records, the harder your schedule. Not exactly rocket science. Here's an example of their SOS in play, based on the 1983 season in the AFC. The Chargers played the hardest schedule that season with an SOS score of 1.9. The Steelers played the easiest schedule with an SOS score of negative 3.3. With a league average schedule coming in at 0.0, we can see that only 5 of the AFC's 14 teams played a schedule above league average, which makes sense given that the NFC was the stronger conference, whereas 9 teams played schedules below league average, with teams like the Patriots and the Jets just missing the mark with a negative 0.1. Here now, for the period of time between 2001 and 2019, are the Patriots' Pro Football Reference SOS schedule number and rank for each season. Yikes. 2001 is understandable. The Patriots weren't great in 2000, but they still landed the easiest schedule in the entire league. Remember, there were only 31 teams in the league in 2001. But everything else? Despite being division champions every single season but 2, where they still finished second, the Patriots finished with a top 10 schedule only 6 times, including only once in the last 9 years. In these 19 seasons, despite being a division champion nearly every season, they finished with a bottom 10 schedule 9 times, including each of the last 5 seasons consecutively. In these 19 seasons, the Patriots were 50% more likely to have a bottom 10 schedule than they were to have a top 10 schedule. Twice, they had a top 5 schedule. 6 times, they had a bottom 5 schedule. In these 19 seasons, the Patriots were 300% more likely to have a bottom 5 schedule than a top 5 schedule. They never once had the league's hardest schedule, but 3 times they had the league's easiest schedule. That is preposterous. If we aggregate all this, the Patriots' SOS number is negative 0.31, and their aggregate rank is 18.7, both below league average. If we take just their Super Bowl winning seasons, they aggregate to a negative 0.53 with an aggregate rank of 20.8, well below league average and equivalent to a lower tier third place team. Just wow. Let's now compare these numbers to those other seasons where Tom Brady graciously allowed other teams to win the Super Bowl. Out of these 13 seasons, 9 were above average schedules. 7 times the schedule was top 10, with only 1 bottom 10 all the way up at the top. 3 top 5 schedules, 0 bottom 5 schedules. The aggregate SOS for these teams, 0.85 with an aggregate rank of 11.6. Remember, these are the Patriots totals in their Super Bowl winning seasons. Negative 0.53 and 20.8. The Patriots' SOS aggregate for 2001 to 2019 was 0.31. Their aggregate rank was 18.7. But where did they truly rank? I'm glad you asked. I aggregated the SOS score for every team in the league during this time period. Here's the top 8. Man, we spared no expense with these decimal points, didn't we? Microsoft Excel is truly a wonderful thing. But yeah, big shock. No Patriots to be seen here. Alright, next. The rest of the top half. Interesting to note here that the negative number started number 14, meaning 19 different teams had what would be considered a below league average schedule. That said, the total average of all 32 teams was .00121, a positive number. So the schedules that were above average were more substantially above average than the below average schedules were. Still no Patriots though, the tension builds. 17 through 24, and only the Steelers really feel out of place here. Lots of top 5 draft picks here. Could it be? Could the Patriots really finish with the NFL's easiest aggregate schedule for all of 2001 to 2019? Oh, what an upset. The Patriots avoid the bottom spot and land at 26th. Yeah, there are teams below them, with the Packers and Colts kind of standing out, but there are lots of bad seasons in here, which equate with easier schedules. The Patriots were perennially division champions, and this was the best the NFL could throw at them. It seemed like every season they matched up with other divisions that were down. What difficult games they had, they tended to be at home. It was all a perfect storm, a perfect confluence. Top-notch rosters with cumulatively the NFL's 7th easiest schedule. The only thing missing was a red carpet to the playoffs every season. The Patriots still needed to win in the playoffs after getting through their division in order to get to the Super Bowl, right? And they did that quite often, right? Yeah, but how many times did they essentially get a bye into the AFC Championship game? Let's examine the Patriots in the Divisional Round, where they had it fairly easy. They have 10 such instances. Oh, we'll talk about this game more, but quickly, the Patriots got a virtual double bye into this game at home against the Raider team that played the week before and had to travel to the East Coast and play in the snow. The Patriots play at home on a bye against the wildcard Titans, where they were quite lucky to win. The undefeated Patriots play at home on a bye against the wildcard Jaguars and couldn't quite put the game away until late. The Patriots play at home on a bye against the bottom-seeded Jets and actually lost that game. The Patriots play at home on a bye against the 8-8 Miracle Broncos that had no business being anywhere near the playoffs. The Patriots play at home on a bye against an actual division champion, the Houston Texans. The Texans were 12-4, but, they're the Texans. The Patriots play at home on a bye against the Colts, who needed a miracle to win at home the week prior. The Patriots play at home on a bye against the bottom-seeded Ravens and win by only 4 points. The Patriots play at home on a bye against a laughably bad Houston Texans team that defaulted their way into this game. The Patriots play at home on a bye against the 9-win wildcard Titans, who needed a mini miracle to win the week prior, including their quarterback throwing a touchdown pass to himself. For the Patriots to win the Super Bowl in these seasons, they only really needed to win 2 games. They did so 4 out of 10 times. Awesome. The Patriots did win 6 Super Bowls with Tom Brady as the starting quarterback, and then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won one under those same circumstances. Most of these games were fairly close that the team Tom Brady played for was lucky to win, with, yes, one that they were unlucky to lose. Hello there, David Tyree. Let's take a look at the most important play from each of these games. Super Bowl 36, Adam Vinatieri's game-winning field goal, with special mention to Ty Law's pick 6 earlier in the game. Super Bowl 38, John Casey infamously kicking the ball out of bounds, giving the Patriots excellent field position for yet another Adam Vinatieri game-winning field goal. Super Bowl 39, no one play, but the Eagles taking forever on this drive in the fourth quarter, drastically decreasing their chances to win. 2 separate Rodney Harrison interceptions also played a huge role. Super Bowl 49, without question, the Malcolm Butler interception. This had to be the biggest swing in win probability in Super Bowl history. Super Bowl 51, Dante Hightower's strip sack of Matt Ryan, single-handedly giving the Patriots a chance. And the Patriots completely predictably winning the overtime coin toss, which put an absolutely spent Falcons defense right back on the field as a result of Atlanta's incomprehensibly terrible offensive game plan after taking a 25-point lead. Super Bowl 53, Stephon Gilmore making this athletic interception as part of an overall ridiculously amazing performance by the Patriots defense. Super Bowl 55, no one play, the Buccaneers won by 22 points, the first definitive Super Bowl win by a team that featured Tom Brady as the starting quarterback. But we will get to this game and this season in more detail later. Every single one of these plays have one incredibly important thing in common. Not one of them involved Tom Brady. He was on the bench for every single one of them. That includes the helmet catch as well, to his benefit. If all these plays got reversed, and the Patriots do indeed win the Super Bowl in 2007, but not the rest, then the chief claim to Tom Brady's goatdom would be fully extinguished, and it would be something that he would have zero control over. Or, let's just say that the Seahawks don't completely Amber Heard the bed and the Seahawks win that Super Bowl. This in turn would potentially lead to a downturn for the Patriots where they didn't sell out to win the next 2 Super Bowls that they did and actually looked ahead toward the future. Tom Brady would have still been the owner of 3 Super Bowl rings and would have been given outsized credit for those rings, but the GOAT talk would be tempered down, again, over something that he would have had zero control over. Let's now talk about that first Super Bowl win, and more specifically, what led up to it. In the Divisional Round, the Patriots matched up with the Oakland Raiders in a snowstorm. Just like in the 1981 AFC Championship game from 20 years earlier, these circumstances provided a massive disadvantage to the high-flying offensive attack from a California-based team. But hey, that's how home field advantage works. That team in 1981, the San Diego Chargers, lost handily to the home team Cincinnati Bengals 27-7 in what is now known as the Freezer Bowl. These Raiders, though, were more than holding their own, building a 13-3 lead that persisted into the fourth quarter. The Patriots finally got into the end zone to make it 13-10. Then, of course, the Tuck rule happened. We can argue all day whether or not the referees got this one right, and on further examination, based on the way the rule was written, yeah, they got it right, and the Patriots, by the skin of their teeth, got to keep the ball. It's what happened next, though, that boggles the mind. Adam Vinatieri hit a 45-yard field goal to tie the game and put it into overtime. On the face of it, a 45-yard field goal isn't drastically difficult for an NFL kicker, but in these conditions, well, it has to be considered the most unlikely field goal in NFL history. maybe only rivaled by Justin Tucker's ridiculous 66-yarder in 2021. But that's Justin Tucker we're talking about. What if Vinatieri missed that kick? Let's play that game.
This is the Patriots season on the line. The kick is away. It is
no good. We now send it to Bob Ryan in the aftermath of the Patriots' loss today at Foxborough. The Patriots certainly had a nice unexpected run into the playoffs. They earned a bye week and a home game, this on the heels of a Week 16 bye. But they lost at home in disappointing fashion with everything playing to their advantage. Adam Vinatieri's valiant field goal attempt missed, and the Patriots are out. Tom Brady filled in rather nicely for the injured Drew Bledsoe, and Coach Belichick was probably right to stay with him while the team was continuing to win. But with this loss, it's expected that Bledsoe and his $103 million contract will be back in the starting role next season. Or, at the very least, that there will be a semi-open competition. We'll have to wait and see, as the Patriots' offseason has already begun, well earlier than anyone here would have hoped. For the Boston Globe, I'm Bob Ryan. We now send it over to on-field reporter Chris Mortensen, who was at Patriots camp. Chris? Thanks, Dan. The Patriots have a new home this season as Gillette Stadium opened up on May 11th, just over 2 years after the stadium broke ground. But the Patriots will not have a new quarterback. Third-year QB Tom Brady, who filled in admirably for Drew Bledsoe last season, after Bledsoe suffered a sheared blood vessel in his chest, was given an opportunity in camp to unseat Bledsoe. He was unable to do so, and Bledsoe will open up the 2002 season with Brady serving as the backup. Here is head coach Bill Belichick. Yeah, Tom did a great job for us last season, stepping up in an unfortunate situation. But we've got Drew healthy again, and he's earned the starting job back. We look forward to having Tom as our backup, and he will be extremely important to this team. He's a pro, and he knows what he needs to do. We're lucky to have two top-notch guys that we can turn to, and we're looking forward to a great season. This is Bob Ryan here at Gillette Stadium after the Patriots ended their season with a dramatic 27-24 overtime victory over the Miami Dolphins. The Patriots certainly had a roller coaster season, starting 3-0, then dropping 4 straight, winning 5 out of 6, then losing twice more before this final victory. The defending AFC East champions finished the season at 9-7 and in a 3-way tie for the division lead. But they lose out on a common games tiebreaker to the New York Jets. That will send the Jets to the playoffs while the Patriots are going to have to stay home. The big question for the Patriots before the season was who was going to play quarterback. The answer was Drew Bledsoe, and after a season of personal disappointment last year, he bounced back with 3,764 passing yards and a league-leading 28 touchdowns. However, he finished 9th in quarterback rating and a dismal 24th in yards per attempt, which may once again open the door to a quarterback competition next season. After back-to-back winning seasons, the Patriots will have to look for whatever can put them over the top to make them serious Super Bowl contenders. We're all extremely interested to see how that plays out. It's the NFL offseason, but there's plenty of news coming out of Massachusetts. We now turn to our own Chris Mortensen to fill us in. Thanks, Dan. The New England Patriots have been making some moves this offseason, bringing in Rodney Harrison, Roosevelt Colvin, and Tyrone Poole to what is looking like a formidable defense after using their first 2 draft picks on Ty Warren and Eugene Wilson. There's even been some rumors that they're looking to bring Ted Washington on board as well. But there have been some other rumors that backup quarterback Tom Brady wants out. He has proven himself fairly well in a starter's role, but with Drew Bledsoe in tow, that opportunity doesn't seem to be coming in New England. We've heard from Patriots staffers that they really like Brady and would like to keep him around in the event that Drew Bledsoe gets hurt again. But if the situation becomes untenable, then they'd have to listen to whatever offers they may receive. We'll have more on this once we have more information. Back to you, Dan. Bonnie Bernstein is down on the sideline with the winning coach of Super Bowl 38, Carolina's John Fox. Thanks, Greg. Coach, what an amazing game that was. What were your thoughts when Ricky Prohl tied the game with just about 1 minute left? Well, my immediate thought was that I was hoping and praying Casey wouldn't botch the kickoff. Thankfully, we didn't see that happen, and we were able to get the game into overtime. You guys were the designated away team for this game, so you got to call the overtime coin toss. Did you have any advice for the captains? No, we left that to Sam Mills. He's been our inspiration all season long. I don't even know what he said to them, I just know that it worked, and Rod was able to get a good kick return for us and put us in excellent position. It was Jermaine Wiggins, a former Patriot, who made the key catch and run on that 3rd and long that got you into field goal position. Tell us about that play. Well, first of all, Deshaun made a great play in the backfield for us there, picking up the blitz on Bruschi. Then Jake was able to move around a little and make a great read down the middle of the field. Jermaine made a great catch, and then we're fortunate enough to have a guy like Steven Davis who can pound the rock. John took it from there. He's been so clutch for us all season, and he'll forever go into the record books for making the game-winning field goal in overtime in the freaking Super Bowl. Thanks, Coach. Congratulations, and go celebrate with your team. Thanks, Bonnie. As owner Jerry Richardson and the Carolina Panthers continue to celebrate, we now take it to Armin Katayan in the Patriots locker room with head coach Bill Belichick. Thanks for talking to us, Coach. I know this is a tough time. The first ever Super Bowl to go into overtime. A tough way to lose. Yeah, we laid it all out on the field today. Those players, they played their hearts out, and we were tied with those guys through 4 quarters. It's just unfortunate we lost the coin toss. What do you say to the team, and how are they taking it? That's a tough group in there. They're going to bounce back. I didn't have to tell them much. They know what they accomplished this season. They'll take this all in and use it going forward. Speaking of going forward, you definitely look primed to make a run next season as well. After Tom Brady started 5 games this season for an injured Drew Bledsoe and was almost in line to start your first playoff game, how do you think that situation will play itself out next season? No, that's not something I'm thinking about right now. We need to process this game, and we'll worry about that when the time is right for it. Okay, thanks, Coach. Welcome back to SportsCenter. Scott Van Pelt here, and one of the biggest questions of the NFL offseason has now been answered. Breaking news into the studio, the New England Patriots have traded quarterback Tom Brady to the San Francisco 49ers. Brady, born and raised in San Mateo, California, and a lifelong 49er fan, will be going home. The 49ers send the Patriots a 4th-round pick in this season's NFL Draft and a 2nd-round pick next season. The Niners are in an interesting position. After back-to-back winning seasons and a division title, they disappointingly slumped to a 7-9 record last season despite outscoring their opponents by nearly 50 points. They've lost their Pro Bowl combination of quarterback Jeff Garcia and Terrell Owens, but this feels more like a reload than a rebuild. And they will be handing the keys of that reload to Tom Brady, who has shown he can have success in this league. The 49ers may be a sleeper pick in the NFC this season. Matt Barrows here with the 49ers end of the season reports. The 49ers close out their worst season in 25 years with a 21-7 loss in New England. In what was meant to be a homecoming of sorts for quarterback Tom Brady, the game was instead started by Ken Dorsey with Brady out injured. Playing with a much less talented roster than the ones he enjoyed while a Patriot, the 49ers were only able to win one of Brady's 9 starts, as he took a beating behind a subpar offensive line and the limited weapons at the skill positions. With the loss, the 49ers now clinched the number 1 pick in the 2005 NFL Draft, but they will not have their 2nd-round pick, sent to the Patriots for Brady. There will be a few good quarterbacks available. Might the 49ers look to draft one, or will they stick with Brady? That's a story for the offseason. For now, the 49ers' 2-14 record mirrors the 14-2 record put up by the Patriots, who the 49ers will now get to watch in the playoffs as the AFC's number 2 seed. And the New England Patriots have finally done it. One season after making it to the big game but coming up short, here in Jacksonville, Florida, the New England Patriots defeat the Philadelphia Eagles 24-21 to win Super Bowl 39. It caps off an incredible 2004 campaign for the Patriots, who stormed their way to a 14-2 record behind the efforts of owner Robert Kraft, head coach Bill Belichick, quarterback Drew Bledsoe, and their 3 All-Pros from each level of the defense, Richard Seymour, Teddy Bruschi, and Ty Law. But it was newly acquired Corey Dillon who drove the running game, and wide receiver Deion Branch, who caught 11 passes for 133 yards to win Super Bowl MVP. Branch's 11 catches tied a Super Bowl record and represented just about half of quarterback Drew Bledsoe's 23 completions in 23 attempts for 236 yards and 2 touchdowns. Congratulations to the New England Patriots for the franchise's first ever Super Bowl victory. For all of us here at Fox and the team and crew of Fox NFL Sunday, I'm James Brown. We'll see you next season.
With the first selection in the 2005 NFL Draft, the San Francisco 49ers select Alex Smith, quarterback, Utah.
So the 49ers do indeed pull the trigger on a quarterback, and they've chosen Utah's Alex Smith over local boy Cal's Aaron Rodgers. Smith joins a 49er roster in tatters, with new head coach Mike Nolan, whose defensive credentials, and to an extent his family pedigree, got him this job. It will be important for Nolan to hire an excellent offensive coordinator and allow for some consistency in Smith's development for him to have a chance. He will also still have Tom Brady at his disposal to serve as the veteran bridge. Either way, with so many holes on the roster and without their full complement of draft picks, expect this to be a long season for the 49er faithful. With the first pick earlier tonight, the 49ers presumably faced the choice between Alex Smith and Aaron Rodgers. Once the 49ers took Smith, it would have appeared that Rodgers wouldn't be too far behind. But here we are with the Jacksonville Jaguars on the clock at number 21, and Rodgers remains on the board and in the green room. We can't imagine them taking Rodgers here 2 years after drafting Byron Leftwich 7th overall, but I suppose stranger things have happened. Here's Commissioner Tagliabue with the pick.
Back in New York, Jacksonville has wasted no time as they're on the clock, a team that had so many close games. They don't want to play a close game. They want to get it over
With the 21st selection in the 2005 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Matt Jones, wide receiver, Arkansas.
Wow.
So it is a quarterback. Kind of. Matt Jones out of Arkansas, who played quarterback in college but will be tasked with playing wide receiver in the NFL. Interesting selection by the Jaguars. Certainly comes with a bit of risk. The Baltimore Ravens are now on the clock at... Wait a minute, what's this? We have reports of a trade, and yes, the pick has been traded, and it's the Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. The Ravens will trade the 22nd pick in the draft to New England for the 32nd pick and the 33rd pick, which they received from San Francisco in the Tom Brady trade. The Ravens will also send the Patriots their 4th rounder at pick 124, along with a 2nd round selection in next year's draft. Who might the Patriots have in mind here?
With the
22nd
selection in the 2005 NFL Draft, the
New England Patriots
select Aaron Rodgers, quarterback in California.
And we have the shocker of the draft. After back-to-back Super Bowl appearances and a victory in that game last season, the New England Patriots, with Drew Bledsoe on their roster, have moved up in the NFL draft to select Cal quarterback Aaron Rodgers. The Javits Center has been set a Twitter. As we wrap up the first round of the NFL Draft, we have Sal Palantonio with some information about the New England Patriots. Sal? Thanks, Boomer. We've been told that the Patriots were enamored with what they called Aaron Rodgers' immense potential and his abundant natural physical talent. But internally, they dismissed the idea that they would be in position to draft him. But once he fell past the Vikings at number 18, They started looking into moving up to get him for fear that someone else may be thinking the same thing. The prevailing notion was that he would not fall past the Redskins at number 25. They were able to pull it off, as we saw, and because they have Drew Bledsoe on the roster, with whom they just won a Super Bowl, they won't need to rush Rodgers onto the field. Belichick made this pick for the future, and he may have just secured that future if Aaron Rodgers turns out anywhere near what the Patriots think he can be. After a season on the bench, Aaron Rodgers took over the starter's role from Drew Bledsoe during the 2006 season. The Patriots won their 4th consecutive division title and went on the road to upset the number 1 seeded 14-2 San Diego Chargers in the Divisional Round of the playoffs. For the AFC Championship game, they went to Indianapolis to face off with their nemesis, the Colts. They were unable to hold on to a 21-3 lead, falling short of the Super Bowl with a 38-34 loss. However, Rodgers had shown enough to secure the starting QB job for the long term. The Patriots traded Drew Bledsoe to the Minnesota Vikings for a 2nd and 4th round pick, then went to the Vikings well again in a roundabout way, trading a 4th round selection they received from the San Francisco 49ers to the Oakland Raiders for former Vikings wide receiver Randy Moss. Intent on returning to the Promised Land, the Patriots added to their offense again with a trade for Miami Dolphins wide receiver Wes Welker, giving their young quarterback everything he may need. The 2007 season was a magical one for the Patriots as they completed the first ever 16-0 undefeated season in NFL history. The Rodgers-Moss combination was unstoppable as Rodgers broke the NFL record with 50 touchdown passes and Randy Moss broke the NFL record with 23 touchdown receptions. With victories over the Jaguars and Chargers, the Patriots took their undefeated record into the Super Bowl against the upstart New York Giants. The Giants played them tight, but they were no match for the dynamic, dual-threat Rodgers and the explosive Patriots offense. The Patriots win their 2nd Super Bowl in 4 seasons, completing the first ever 19-0 perfect season. The Patriots dynasty was in full effect, and despite interest from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Aaron Rodgers is still with the team this season in 2023, in search of his 7th Super Bowl ring and the Patriots' 8th. Alex Smith and Tom Brady split time in the 2005 season, with neither able to gain any traction with a roster in full rebuild mode. Given their investment in Alex Smith, the 49ers moved on from Brady after the season, trading him to the New York Giants to serve as Eli Manning's backup, reuniting him with John Hufnagel, the Giants' offensive coordinator and Brady's quarterback coach with New England in 2003. Brady stayed with the Giants for a season, missing out on their run to the Super Bowl in 2007. He signed with the Kansas City Chiefs in the hopes of reestablishing himself as a starter, where he shared time with second-year quarterback Brodie Croyle. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers signed him in 2009 to serve as the bridge quarterback for rookie Josh Freeman, where he stayed for another 2 seasons. He was unable to garner any interest beyond that kind of role. After going unsigned into the 2011 season and through an accumulation of injuries while playing behind poor offensive lines, Tom Brady announced his retirement from the NFL. He carved out an 11-year career, an impressive feat for a 6th-round pick, and even got to start a playoff game. Unfortunately, Patriots kicker Adam Vinatieri missed what would have been an incredible 45-yard field goal in a blizzard that could have sent that game to overtime. One must wonder what could have been for Brady had that kick gone through. Instead, he found himself in bad situation after bad situation. He would make an excellent coach if he wants to take that direction. His experience from the sideline would certainly serve him well on the sideline. Only time will tell. But Vinatieri made the kick. New England won a wild game against the Steelers in the AFC Championship game, wherein they scored 0 points with Tom Brady on the field, and they won the Super Bowl despite 1 offensive touchdown the entire game and, as we would later find out, some naughty behavior regarding some videotaping. And the rest is history. Yeah, I took a few creative liberties and all of that, and hell yeah, it was fun as all get out for me to do. But it was also completely realistic. In another situation, Tom Brady wouldn't be the Tom Brady most consider him to be today, period. You can certainly give him credit for helping sustain the Patriots' winning ways. He was most certainly not a hindrance. More often than not, the team won with him rather than in spite of him, although they did win many a playoff game where he played atrociously. Check out Barry McCockiner's breakdown on all of that in this video. He didn't need to be anything special, he just needed to not jack it up. That's what he did, and props to him for it. But the GOAT? Nuh-uh. Passing the standards in a minimal manner does not make it a GOAT. Sorry, not sorry. Now that we're back to reality, let's focus on the other constant for the Patriots during this run, head coach Bill Belichick. You know, the guy who's involved in every aspect of what the team does, not a guy who plays only half the game with rules in place to protect them at all costs. Belichick excels at so many things, and as a 49er fan, it hurts me deeply to say this, because I revere Bill Walsh. But Belichick has surpassed him. He's surpassed everybody, and of all the things he does excel at, chief among them is his ability to find players in the NFL draft, and sometimes beyond the draft, and turn them into way more than anyone would have ever thought they could be. Moreover, when players, not to mention coaches from his staff, leave him, they're almost always never as good as they were with him. Your one exception to this might be Chandler Jones. And naturally, Belichick doesn't have a perfect record in the drafts, who does? But check out these gems. Except for maybe the wide receivers and tight ends on that list, these players and their success have nothing to do with Tom Brady and have everything to do with Bill Belichick, his coaching staff, and the players themselves. And we're not even counting the many first-round picks he hit on and other late-round picks that delivered on at least some productivity. Bill Belichick's game planning is also the stuff of legend, able to precisely identify how to attack a defense and how to resist an offense. How else to explain keeping a Sean McVay offense to 3 entire points in Super Bowl 53? He is a 3-time NFL Coach of the Year, when in reality, he should have won it a few more times, including one in specific that I will get to. And consider this as another massive benefit to Tom Brady. When the Patriots won Super Bowl 36, they held on to both of their coordinators, Charlie Weis on offense and Romeo Crennel on defense. When they won Super Bowl 38, they again kept both coordinators. It was only after winning a third Super Bowl in 4 years that the coordinators left for head coaching jobs. Contrast that to the 49ers, who, after winning Super Bowl 29, lost offensive coordinator Mike Shanahan to the Broncos, where he won 2 Super Bowls, and defensive coordinator Ray Rhodes to the Philadelphia Eagles, where he was promptly named NFL Coach of the Year. And speaking of the Eagles, upon losing the Super Bowl last season, they lost coordinators Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon to the Indianapolis Colts and Arizona Cardinals respectively. So yeah, these teams were set up to win and win big, especially when we consider the path to that winning based on their schedule as we have previously covered. Yep, I can hear you. You're crowing about how the Patriots have performed since 2020 when Tom Brady signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We will talk about that. With that signing in Tampa Bay, Tom Brady joined up with Bruce Arians. In his 21st season, this was only the second head coach Tom Brady ever played for. And guess what? He is also a multiple-time NFL Coach of the Year winner. And like Bill Belichick, he has 2 Super Bowl rings as an assistant coach. But as soon as Brady didn't have a maestro as a coach, Todd Bowles, the Buccaneers finished 8-9. Yeah, they won a division, but when you win a division with a losing record, you're worse than a 5-12 team finishing last in a strong division. As soon as they got to the playoffs, they were stomped by a team that lost their next game, to a team that lost their next game, to a team that lost its next game. So, at least the Buccaneers can say they lost to the team who lost to the team who lost to the team who won the Super Bowl. Excellent. Back to Bill Belichick, though. When asked about his pick of any quarterback in NFL history, presumably outside of Tom Brady, he answered Burt Jones. For the young ones out there, Burt Jones played in the 1970s with the then Baltimore Colts, putting together one of the greatest seasons in NFL history in 1976, winning the league MVP. He came to Baltimore tasked with replacing Johnny Unitas, still on the short list of all-time greats. So, no pressure there. A shoulder injury, which never properly healed in 1977, derailed his career until it ended with a single season in Los Angeles with the Rams. Injuries were certainly handled differently back then. Not only was the technology different, often resulting in poor diagnoses, see Mark Fidrich's career for more on that, but the mentality was different. Players played injured far more often than they do today. Getting shut down for a while and receiving modern-day treatment surely would have allowed Burt Jones to heal properly and go on with a career that looked destined for greatness. But here are some snippets of what Belichick, who spent the 1975 season on the Colts coaching staff, the season before Burt Jones fully broke out, had to say. Very athletic. He had an arm like no other, really. I've never seen a player with the kind of flexibility he had in his arm. The kind of whip and accuracy. He had a very quick delivery. He was a tremendous quarterback in an era that was a little bit different. But if he played today and was healthy, we'd all say this guy's really good. Once he hurt his shoulder, he was never really the same. But it wasn't like he was ever not a good player. Some guys are up and down or whatever, but he was always good. Burt Jones could do things that I've never seen another quarterback do. I would play catch with Burt. He would throw the ball, and then maybe every fifth or sixth pass, he would throw the ball and then release it on the other side of his head. His shoulder was that loose. What in this statement can be said about Tom Brady? Very athletic? No. Arm like no other? No. Flexibility in his arm? No. Whip and accuracy? Sure, Brady's mostly accurate, but whip? No. Quick delivery? It's not slow, but it's not Burt Jones or Dan Marino. A loose shoulder where he could throw a ball and release it on the other side of his head? No. Do things that he's never seen another quarterback do? No, 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 no. As Belichick said, he was a tremendous quarterback in an era that was a little different. So ask yourself this. Would Tom Brady have thrived in this era where his heavily limited skill set would be eaten alive by defenders allowed to maul receivers at the line of scrimmage? Would he be able to withstand a pass rush when his offensive line had to line up directly on that same line of scrimmage? Could he handle being hit by the likes of Jack Lambert and Phil Villapiano? And with those physical skills combined with modern technologies and mentalities, couldn't Burt Jones have easily stepped in as the Patriots quarterback in 2001 and done exactly what Brady has done, but probably better? I guess I'll just let you decide. But as we discuss quarterbacks stepping in for other quarterbacks, I give you these two individuals. On the left is Curtis Painter. On the right is Matt Cassel. At some point in the year 2000, Matt Cassel started his final game at Chatsworth High School in Los Angeles. He then enrolled at USC and was on the Trojans roster for the next 4 seasons. In those 4 seasons, he started 0 games. Yeah, 0. As many games as I started for USC during that time. He threw 33 passes, no more than 14 in any one season. Those 33 passes accumulated to fewer than 200 yards with no touchdowns and 1 interception. But Bill Belichick saw something in him to draft him in the 7th round in 2005. Curtis Painter, on the other hand, played his college football at Purdue, where he started 41 games over 4 seasons, and in his sophomore season, he broke the Big Ten record for most passing yards in a single season, a record previously held by Drew Brees. He finished his career with over 11,000 passing yards, 67 touchdowns, and 33 more rushing attempts than Matt Cassel had passing yards. Painter parlayed this career into a 6th round selection of the Indianapolis Colts in 2009. Both Cassel and Painter were 6'4", roughly the same weight, and were basically indistinguishable from each other. But clearly, Painter was the more experienced of the two by far. There is another thing they had in common. Early in their careers, they were both thrust into the starting quarterback role for their respective teams, albeit in dramatically different circumstances. The Patriots opened the 2008 season, coming off their 16-0 regular season, with much of the offense still intact, but with many changes on defense. In their first game, Tom Brady went down with an injury. A hit from Bernard Pollard resulted in a torn ACL and MCL, ending Brady's season. This was the first and over time proved to be the only injury he ever received in his career that resulted in missed games. Thrust into the spotlight without any forewarning or preparation, Matt Cassel entered the game, and his first play came from the Patriots' 2-yard line. Not ideal. Not a problem either. Without receiving any starters reps and without the tiniest inkling that he would be anywhere near this game, the Patriots embarked on a 10-play, 98-yard drive, highlighted by a 51-yard pass from Cassel to Randy Moss, and capped off by a 10-yard touchdown pass again from Cassel to Moss. And just like that, the Patriots led the game 7-0, a lead they never relinquished. Cassel remained the starter the rest of the season, and while they certainly regressed some from a 16-0 finish, they finished with an excellent 11-5 record. Entering the 2011 season, the Indianapolis Colts were coming off 9 consecutive and 11 out of 12 double-digit win seasons and playoff appearances, with a mostly intact team from the previous season's 10-6 record, including the return of multiple-time Pro Bowl tight end Dallas Clark from injury. Since 1999, they finished with a top 10 defense twice, in 2002 and 2007, with just as many bottom 10 finishes, so they were mainly carried by the offense. In the offseason, quarterback Peyton Manning had neck surgery, which was then followed with spinal fusion surgery, placing his career in doubt. He was certainly going to miss the 2011 season, despite public declarations that he had a chance of playing at some point. Knowing well in advance that they weren't going to have Manning available, rather than losing him during a game after the season has started, the Colts had ample opportunity to prepare. Curtis Painter was available to them, but they chose to bring in a near 40-year-old Kerry Collins out of retirement. They started the season 0-3 and the fragile Collins got injured, so Curtis Painter took over the role. Would he have a Matt Cassel-like impact? They lost 8 straight games, dropping their record to 0-11, so no. They turned to Dan Orlovsky, who made a career in the NFL playing for wretched teams, and they continued to an 0-13 record. In 2009, just 2 years earlier, with a mostly intact team, the Colts started 13-0. In fact, they actually started 14-0. The Colts avoided the ignominy of going 0-16 by snipping out a couple of wins, but they had collapsed to a 2-14 record, and 2 years after playing in the Super Bowl, had secured the #1 pick in the NFL Draft. So tell me, what is the major difference between Matt Cassel and Curtis Painter? Do we imagine that if it was Painter who replaced Brady under the Bill Belichick coaching staff, then the Patriots go 2-14 and get the first pick in the draft? And that likewise, if it was Matt Cassel replacing Peyton Manning under the Jim Caldwell coaching staff, that the Colts would get up to 11-5? Of course not. And if you truly believe that, then maybe you ought to sue your elementary school for the crappy education they so clearly gave you. Sure, Matt Cassel is probably at least somewhat better than Curtis Painter. He did have that fluky season in Kansas City for the Chiefs in 2010, where the Chiefs went 10-6 against the AFC's easiest and the NFL's 5th easiest schedule. He didn't reach anything close to those heights ever again, but at least he has that to put on his resume. No, the difference between Matt Cassel and Curtis Painter is not the moral of this story, not by a long shot. The moral of this story is that Tom Brady gets hurt during the season, the Patriots have to adjust on the fly, and they still finished 11-5 with a quarterback that hadn't started a game since high school, while Peyton Manning gets hurt in the offseason, giving the Colts that ample time to prepare, and they fell apart to the worst record in the entire league. Why? Because the Patriots had much more talent across their roster than the Colts did, and because Peyton Manning carried his team in a way that many quarterbacks are given credit for, but that precious few actually do. For those who would point out that the Patriots still missed the playoffs in 2008, I counter with this. Since the playoffs were expanded to 6 teams per conference in 1990, there has been only one team to go 11-5 and not make the playoffs. Yep, this team was it. Between 1978, the season the NFL expanded its schedule to 16 games, and 1989, the last season only 5 teams made the playoffs from each conference, again only one team missed out on the playoffs with 11 wins, the Denver Broncos. Even with that extra playoff spot, the Patriots still somehow missed out. In the Broncos time frame, 59 times a team won 11 games or more, with 58 making the playoffs, a 98.3% clip. Rotten luck for the Broncos, no question. But since 1990, 233 out of 234 teams with 11 wins or more made the playoffs, a 99.6% clip. You would have a better chance of losing 13 consecutive games of rock, paper, scissors. I'm not talking about any draws here. 13 consecutive losses. And, just for good measure, Tom Brady returned fully healthy the next season, reclaimed his job, started all 16 games, and the team proceeded to actually win fewer games, going 10-6, yet winning the division and making the playoffs anyway. So if you still think that Tom Brady is more valuable, let alone better than Peyton Manning, even while discounting the implausible amount of luck he always seems to have, then I don't know, stop the video I guess. Yeah, that would hurt my watch hours that I need, but I gotta stand on principle at some points. Oh, and just for the record, in that playoff appearance in 2009, the Patriots were stomped at home in the opening round 33-14 by the 6th-seeded Baltimore Ravens, a game we referenced earlier. All that said, we want to reiterate that the point of this video is not to state that Tom Brady is bad at football. He's not. He's actually had some great seasons. I created a metric called Comparative Passer Rating, or COPR for short. It was the first video I ever posted on this channel back in July of 2020. I've since deleted it. I didn't quite know what I was doing back then, the audio quality is absolute crap, the editing was dodgy, and it's now 3 seasons behind the times. Thankfully, I've since upgraded my equipment and have gotten much better at editing. At least I think I have. But I'm still proud of the actual content. There's a bit of math here, so bear with me just a little bit. At its basics, each category that the NFL takes into consideration when determining passer rating, completion percentage, yards per attempt, touchdown percentage, and interception percentage, is measured against what the entire league did as a whole that season, hence the name comparative passer rating. A passer rating of 95 in 1992 looks a lot better than it does in 2022. A quick example would be Jay Cutler's 2014 season with the Chicago Bears. These numbers on the left are Jay Cutler's stats for the season. The numbers on the right are what the NFL accomplished as a whole. These are the raw numbers. Here we have the percentages. Plugging these numbers into the NFL's passer rating formula, which can be seen here, These are the numbers we get. We now compare how much better or worse these percentages were than the NFL average. Average these results, multiply by 100, and we get this number. We add 100 back to that number, normalizing it to where a co-PR of 100 is league average, similar to how OPS Plus works in baseball, and we see that Jay Cutler came in at 100.242, meaning he was 0.242% better than league average. A co-PR of 110 would be 10% better than league average, and so forth. Here are Tom Brady's results. As we can see, in 2007, he was amazing, the entire Patriots team was amazing, and his co-PR was 148.69, meaning he was nearly 50% better than league average. He was also excellent in 2010, posting a 135, and he was very, very good in 2016, posting a 128. Right behind that, 2011, also at 128. Beyond that, everything falls under 120. 120 is a perfectly fine co-PR, but it's not GOAT material, and hitting that number 4 times in 21 chances is not GOAT material. However, we have something else we want to look at here. We're going to highlight all the co-PRs from seasons where Tom Brady and the New England Patriots or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. Take a look there. Of Tom Brady's 9 best seasons individually, only once did that accompany a Super Bowl win. Yeah, we cherry-picked the top 9 there, but if we want to get more specific, let's talk about the top half. Number 11 marks the midpoint of these rankings. So from 11 up, Tom Brady wins 2 Super Bowls, and from 11 down, he wins 5 Super Bowls. That indicates to us that his team had much more to do with those Super Bowl victories than he did. But of course that's a given because teams win Super Bowls, not individual players. And it just goes to show that having simply a slightly above average quarterback, which in many of these seasons perfectly describes what Tom Brady was, can win a Super Bowl as long as the team is good. So looking at this, tell me how Tom Brady is singularly responsible for 7 Super Bowl rings. He's not. Now let's take a look at these same numbers in a different light. We're just going to list them year by year. The number on the left is where Tom Brady ranked among other quarterbacks in the NFL that season. Highlighted in yellow are the seasons in which the Patriots or the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady as their starter. Highlighted in green are those seasons where Brady finished in the top 5, and he did so 5 times in 21 tries. Highlighted in blue is the sole season where he finished as a top 5 in co-PR and his team won the Super Bowl. So let me amend that last statement. He's finished in the top 5 6 times out of 21 tries. Yet only 1 time in those 7 Super Bowl wins would Tom Brady be looked upon in an efficiency standpoint as a top 5 quarterback in the league. This is preposterous given how easy his job is in comparison to other quarterbacks in the league based on what we've told you about the Patriots' talent and the Patriots' schedule. So in 21 seasons, 6 times, he is considered a top 5 quarterback, a less than 30% clip. That is not GOAT material, period. This is not a perfect metric because passer rating itself is not a perfect metric. But these categories of completion percentage, yards per attempt, touchdowns, and interceptions are the statistics that we generally look at when determining whether or not a quarterback is good. And while these statistics can be somewhat manipulated, a perfect 50-yard pass can be dropped, a very short dump-off pass can become a 70-yard touchdown, they still serve their purpose. Now, this is all somewhat reflected in MVP voting. For the most part, the NFL MVP award is nothing more than a quarterback award. Tom Brady's first proper season in the NFL was 2001. 22 MVP awards have been given in that time. 3 times it went to running backs, which required record-breaking or near record-breaking seasons. Sean Alexander in 2005, LaDainian Tomlinson in 2006, and Adrian Peterson in 2012. The other 19 seasons, yeah, all quarterbacks. Discounting 2008, Tom Brady had 18 opportunities to win the award. He's done so 3 times, in 2007, 2010, and 2017, the first 2 perfectly corresponding to his 2 highest co-PR numbers. Sounds good, right? Well, Peyton Manning has 5 MVPs, and Aaron Rodgers has 4, and they did so with fewer opportunities. And recall that the MVP is a media award, and while Manning and Brady are certainly media darlings, Rodgers is not. We should also consider that Brady's award in 2017 was essentially a consolation prize when clear frontrunner Carson Wentz, yeah, that was a thing once, was lost for the season due to injury. Then an argument could be made that Randy Moss truly deserved the award in 2007, but wide receivers literally never win the award. I mean, if Jerry Rice never won an MVP, no receiver ever will. We can't take Tom Brady's 2017 award away, but he functionally has won the award twice. Patrick Mahomes has already won it twice in 5 seasons as a starter. Would the undisputed, no question about it, how dare you question it, GOAT only have 2 functional MVPs? But the argument is going to come down to Brady's cumulative numbers, starting with Super Bowl wins. And it is an indisputable fact that Tom Brady has more Super Bowl rings than any other player with 7. He does have 1 fewer than Bill Belichick, though, it should be mentioned. But it is also an indisputable fact that Super Bowl rings correlate with how good a team is, not how good one player is. So if you want to argue that Tom Brady is the greatest of all time at being on good teams, I will agree with you. But we also demonstrated that Tom Brady's 10 worst seasons as a pro, according to co-PR, still led to 5 Super Bowl wins. Thus, the majority of the Super Bowls Tom Brady won have been with him essentially along for the ride. He contributed to these wins, no doubt. We're repeating ourselves on this matter because we need to. But his greatest contribution is that, for the most part, he didn't blow games for his team, a thing that so many quarterbacks do. He played within the system and within his capabilities, which are basic at best as it pertains to an NFL-level quarterback. But we must emphasize that rings do not equal greatness. Jim Plunkett was the starting quarterback for 2 Super Bowl winners. Is he better than this list of players who only won 1? Jim Plunkett over Drew Brees? Jim Plunkett over Aaron Rodgers? Jim Plunkett over Steve Young? Please. Then there's this list of quarterbacks who won a Super Bowl as a starter, and this list of quarterbacks who never have. Which players do you prefer? And if rings really do demonstrate greatness, then tell me, how many lists of best defensive players of all time are topped by Charles Haley? He does hold the record for most rings by a defensive player, and was indeed the first player to ever win 5 Super Bowls. And he wasn't just along for the ride. He was a major contributor to all these defenses. His move from the 49ers to the Cowboys in 1992 shifted the balance in the NFC and gave the Cowboys the impetus they needed to start their dynasty. Yet, it took Haley 11 tries before finally making the Hall of Fame. So it seems like the football talking heads only consider Super Bowl rings for quarterbacks, because football is a one-on-one game disguised as a team sport, right? It's a one-man show with 52 dancers in the background. Therefore, football is a Madonna concert. How could I have been wrong about how football works for so long? We've already demonstrated that from an efficiency standpoint, Tom Brady is simply above average, but not in the GOAT territory. But let's go ahead and talk about his raw numbers. Once again, we will point out that Brady, getting in a 23-year career, 21 of which he properly played, is incredibly impressive. it's a definite point in his favor. With all those years and all those pass attempts, I should hope that he holds the record for all the counting stats. But to quote Barry McCockiner, saying that Tom Brady is the best because he holds these records is the same thing as saying that Shaquille O'Neal is a better free throw shooter than Steph Curry based on his 5,935 made free throws against Curry's 3,454, a difference of nearly 2,500 free throws. With your life on the line, between Shaquille O'Neal and Steph Curry, who would you want shooting a free throw to save you? Did you answer Shaq? If you did, I believe that Charles Bronson would like a word with you. Same question. If you needed a quarterback to make a difficult throw to save your life, do you want Tom Brady to make that throw for you? Or would you prefer Peyton Manning? Or Aaron Rodgers? Or Patrick Mahomes? Or Dan Marino? Or Burt Jones? Or Johnny Unitas? Or Otto Graham? Or a host of other quarterbacks? If he's the GOAT, don't you want him? No questions asked? Or are there better options? Much better options. But back to these raw stats. Let's just for the moment compare Tom Brady with Peyton Manning. Brady's got him beat in volume for certain, but how about efficiency? As we see, Brady's miles ahead of Manning when it comes to game started, completions, attempts, yards, touchdowns, all the like. Now let's look at efficiency. Completion percentage, Manning with the edge. Touchdown percentage, Manning with the edge. Interception percentage, yeah, Brady has the edge. Peyton got a little interception happy at certain points in his career. Yards per attempt, Manning. Adjusted yards per attempt, barely Brady. Yards per completion, Manning. Yards per game, Manning. Quarterback rating, slight edge to Brady. Net yards per attempt, Manning pretty substantially. And adjusted net yards per attempt, again Manning. Now we look at a category known as AV, which stands for approximate value. AV is Pro Football Reference's attempt to quantify all of a player's accomplishment into a single number of value, very similar to baseball's wins above replacement stat, also known as WAR. AV is far from a perfect stat, just like how WAR is far from a perfect stat, and it tends to inflate certain positions above others, namely quarterbacks and running backs. That said, it does make for an excellent point of reference. Looking at the raw AV here, of course Brady, just like everything else over Manning, has the advantage given his longevity, but looking at it on a per game basis, Brady comes in at just under 1 per game, while Manning comes in at just over 1. And on a per throw basis, it's very close, but Manning does have the edge. Let's now put Tom Brady's numbers up against Aaron Rodgers, someone who is late in his career but is still going with his career. Again, the raw stats are always going to favor Brady. Games started, completions well ahead. The efficiency stats though. Completion percentage, Rodgers has him by 1%. Touchdown percentage, almost a full percent higher. Interception percentage, and Brady's always been good at protecting the ball, but Rodgers is even better. Yards per attempt and adjusted yards per attempt, both in the column of Rodgers. Yards per game, slightly ahead is Brady on that one. Quarterback rating, more than 6 full points belongs to Rodgers. Net yards per attempt, Rodgers is slightly behind Brady, but adjusted net yards per attempt, he gets a much bigger lead. Looking at AV now, Rodgers is 105 points behind, but on a per game basis, Rodgers has him beat, and on a per throw basis, Rodgers also has him beat. We'll look at one more quarterback here as an example, and that's going to be Patrick Mahomes, someone whose career is just about 1/4 at this point the length of Brady's, and that's reflected here in the games. It's actually less than 1/4. Brady's going to have him crushed in all the counting stats. Mahomes is still in his 20s. But completion percentage, Mahomes is 2 points higher. Touchdown percentage, a point higher. Interception percentage, Mahomes is given a little bit of gruff for being a little too risky with the ball sometimes, but you'll see his interception percentage is smaller than Brady's. Yards per attempt, 0.7 yards higher. Adjusted yards per attempt, almost an entire yard higher. Yards per completion, almost an entire yard higher. Yards per game, Mahomes averages over 300 yards per game for his career. Quarterback rating, 8.5 points higher. Net yards per attempt, getting close to an entire yard higher. Adjusted net yards per attempt, 0.99 yards higher. And as far as AV goes, Mahomes is averaging over 1.1 per game, and on a per throw basis, 0.031. All of these are higher than Brady's. Now, we must mention about Mahomes, this is a much smaller sample size, and it's questionable whether or not he would be able to maintain such a pace over 335 games and 12,000 attempts the way Brady has. But the numbers do speak volumes. This is missing a little bit of context though. How does all this shake out in co-PR? Well, it only gets worse for Brady. In the post-merger era, among all quarterbacks who have attempted at least 1,000 passes, Aaron Rodgers ranks 6th in career co-PR, Peyton Manning 7th, and Patrick Mahomes 8th. Brady brings up the rear of the top 20, ranking behind many quarterbacks who wouldn't be considered worthy of lacing his shoelaces by all the talking heads. Sample size certainly matters, without question, but not the greatest look for the GOAT, eh? So as is always the case, we will give Brady credit for his longevity, but over the long run, his efficiency doesn't match up with these guys. And you can make the argument that, oh, he's up there in years at this point. But let me tell you, his own peers going into the 2022 season ranked Tom Brady as the #1 player in the whole NFL. So no excuses on age for this one. Let's conjure our friend Barry McCockiner again. His first video on Tom Brady, titled Tom Brady, the most overrated player in sports history, breaks down the support he got in terms of average starting field position, points per drive allowed by his defense, the kicking game, and defensive and special teams return touchdowns. Things that are 100 million% out of Tom Brady's control. I won't regurgitate all of that information here, but suffice it to say that Brady certainly had massive advantages in these categories over his contemporaries. And trust me, Barry did his research on this one. If you haven't watched that video, you need to. He also takes the time to go into the vast amount of luck that Brady has had in his career, which is then further illuminated in this video. He continued on the Brady train after the 2020 NFL season with this video. All of these are linked in the description below. Now, this was the season that supposedly proved that everything everyone ever said about Tom Brady being the undisputed GOAT is true. He left the Patriots ecosystem, he left Bill Belichick, and he hoisted the Lombardi one more time. Case absolutely closed, right? No, not even a little bit. Let's dive right in. We must first discuss the circumstances of the 2020 season, though. Many people are quick to throw asterisks on the 1982 and 1987 seasons, and rightfully so. Both seasons were disrupted by work stoppages. The stoppage in 1982 caused the cancellation of 7 games, nearly half the season, and created a highly imbalanced schedule. The Washington Redskins beat the Miami Dolphins in the Super Bowl that season, in what was Washington's first and only game against the AFC that season. Yeah, that's imbalanced. 1987 was an even more interesting case. The season had a work stoppage as well, but only 1 game was canceled. As the stoppage continued, the NFL decided to restart the season, and the games went on with replacement players. So NFL standings were being created by individuals who weren't rightfully NFL players. Until they were. Kinda. The NFLPA wasn't quite the cohesive unit in 1987 that we know it as today, and many players crossed the picket lines and got back on the field. Any given game during this time could have featured an NFL roster with NFL players against an NFL roster with replacement players. It was madness, yet all these games counted toward the final standings. The hybrid replacement player games lasted 3 weeks before the work stoppage was called off. Players who did not cross the picket line and played out the rest of the season would have played 12 games. Others played more. Then you have the case of someone like Anthony Allen, who played as a replacement wide receiver for the Washington Redskins, who incidentally went 3-0 in these replacement games to help solidify their playoff positioning. He was tremendous against the training camp fodder level competition, including a game against the St. Louis Cardinals, where he caught 8 passes for 255 yards and 3 touchdowns. Those 255 yards, 36 years later, still stands as the franchise record. Pure and utter madness. Just like they did in 1982, Washington took the Super Bowl in this asterisk season as well. These seasons certainly deserve their asterisks, but no season deserves it more without ever receiving one than the 2020 NFL season. You see, there was a little problem in the air, quite literally, and the NFL, to its partial credit, did what they could to try to see the season all the way through. But if the 1982 and 1987 seasons had disruptions, this season had eruptions. Games were constantly being postponed and rescheduled, but there wasn't any particular rhyme or reason to any of these. Sometimes teams got the benefit of a reschedule in order to get some semblance of a full roster on the field. Sometimes, teams were forced to play without an entire position group available to them, like that farcical Broncos-Saints game that looked like it was pulled out of a Dark World Benny Hill episode. Moreover, players were given the opportunity to opt out of the season entirely, which 67 players chose to do. So while in 1982 112 games were disrupted, and in 1987 64 games were disrupted, in 2020 all 269 games, including the postseason, were disrupted. We're going to need something more than an asterisk for this one. But forget about all that. Only one thing happened in the 2020 NFL offseason that mattered, right? Just one thing. That one thing was Tom Brady leaving the New England Patriots to sign with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In terms of overall importance, it's basically the entire pie. Tom Brady left the unstoppable juggernaut known as the New England Patriots to join the bad news Bears level of laughingstock that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In doing so, the Patriots' empire completely collapsed without its Richard the Lionheart, while the lowly Tampa Bay Buccaneers rose like the Holy Roman Empire into an era of enlightenment and conquering that had never before seen the light of day. And it was all single-handedly. The Patriots returned the exact same team from the year before, just minus Brady. And Tampa returned the exact same team from the year before as well, only to add Brady. In fact, anywhere Tom Brady went to that season was simply guaranteed to win a championship. He could have gone to Jacksonville, Super Bowl. He could have gone to Detroit, Super Bowl. He could have gone to Houston, Super Bowl. He could have gone to Boise, What? Boise doesn't have an NFL team? It doesn't matter. The Boise Fighting Bradys would start from scratch, and on the pure power of Tom Brady and his arugula ice cream or whatever the hell he eats, would single-handedly reign supreme over all the peasants in his wake. Yeah, none of it went down that way. We've given Brady credit for his intelligence, but that isn't solely on the field. No, he's become quite shrewd off the field as well. We saw that 2019 wasn't a particularly good season for our dear Tom. It was his worst season from a co-PR standpoint. Yet, the Patriots still dominated the league early in the season, got itself yet another division title, as the Bills were still on the precipice of their breakout, but hadn't quite gotten there yet. They faced Tennessee at home in the wildcard round of the playoffs, a game which they lost, and a game where Tom Brady's final pass in a Patriots uniform was a touchdown to Logan Ryan. Logan Ryan played for the Titans. Yeah, Tom Brady's final pass for the Patriots was a pick six in a playoff game they lost at home to a bottom-seeded team. He saw the writing on the wall. He knew that the Patriots had pretty much sold out their long-term plans in order to try and grab a few more Lombardis. And hey, it worked. They went to the Super Bowl 4 times in 6 seasons and cashed in on 3 of them. Thanks to Pete Carroll, Malcolm Butler, and Kyle Shanahan for those, by the way. And in selling out, the team just wasn't going to be the same. Brady was part of that problem as well. He's been given credit for taking less money, allowing the team around him to be built up, and he deserves some of the credit for that. Never mind the fact that the money he makes off the field and the obscene wealth of his then-wife meant that he didn't need to make a dime actually playing football. But all those contract restructures and accounting hullabaloo came with a price. Despite leaving the team on his own and not being considered a cap casualty, Tom Brady still counted for $13.5 million against the Patriots' 2020 cap, the third highest hit on the team, only behind Joe Thuney and Stephon Gilmore. We'll explore that a little bit more in a moment, but the bottom line was that the Patriots were no longer going to be in a position to carry Tom Brady as he had been carried throughout his career. And with Brady much better suited to a supporting role, his time in New England was up. While everyone just assumed he would either stay in New England out of some kind of loyalty or just retire, I not only knew that he was leaving, but I knew where he was going. The 2019 season was a fun one for me. It was the first season where legalized sports betting was available in my state, and I didn't have to work on Sundays. On top of that, my 49ers were emerging as an elite team. I watched a lot of football. It got to where I had a pretty good feel for every team, and one team I locked in on a little bit was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. While only a very few select quarterbacks are capable of properly carrying a team, there is a larger pool of quarterbacks that can systematically destroy a team. The Bucs had one of those quarterbacks in Jameis Winston. He is one talented dude, but he is also completely reckless. In the modern NFL, where a 20-interception season is essentially unforgivable, Jameis Winston tried for another trip around the sun by launching 30 of them. He was hurting his otherwise extremely talented team to where they were only able to finish with a 7-9 record. Of those 9 losses, 6 came by one score, including 2 losses in overtime. They had a positive point differential, albeit slightly. All this team needed was stability at the quarterback position. Not superstardom, just stability. So I did the math. The team fit was absolutely perfect. That's one. The city fit was perfect. Going from Boston to Tampa is an upgrade in so many regards. But for Tom Brady at his advancing age, the change in weather had to be of chief concern. That's two. The marketing opportunity for TB, Tom Brady, to be playing in TB, Tampa Bay, was a bit too perfect. That's 3. And the big one, the fact that this team was ready to win even without Tom Brady, just not with Jameis Winston, meant that he could step in, the team would stop underachieving so badly, and he could basically single-handedly take all the credit, or at the very least single-handedly be given all the credit. That's a home run right there, and I told anyone who would listen to me, which we all know wasn't too many people because I do have an ability to go on about stuff, that he was going to Tampa. Lock it up, seal it up, done deal. An 11-5 team in 7-9 clothing, and Tom Brady, being the shrewd, intelligent hawkshaw that he is, saw it the same way I did. And once he got there, to paraphrase Barry McCockiner, he became the second best quarterback over the age of 40 from a Big Ten school in his own division. It was close, but co-PR bears that out. But he certainly did not come alone. At the skill positions alone, the Buccaneers added Leonard Fournette, a former top 5 pick, Pro Bowler, and supremely talented running back who had the misfortune of having to play in the Tom Coughlin is an executive era of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Yeah, that Tom Coughlin era. They added Antonio Brown, who probably won't make the Hall of Fame due to his, shenanigans, but in terms of career production is a no doubt Hall of Famer. And they didn't just add a Hall of Fame tight end. No. They added the single greatest tight end to ever play the game in Rob Gronkowski. Bring up your receiving statistics all you want. If you're a tight end, you have an obligation to do more than just receiving. Otherwise, you're not a tight end. You're a wide receiver. Gronk had it all and was a devastating blocker on top of being a devastating receiver. His GOAT status is, in my mind, unquestioned. And just for kicks, Ha, get it? Kicks. They also added a new kicker in Ryan Suckup. Hey, guess what? The Bucs scored 31 points in the Super Bowl that season, and all 31 points were scored by these new additions. Jeez, I could have swore that I saw Tom Brady throwing the ball up, racing down the field with his legendary blazing speed and athleticism, and catching his own touchdown passes. Or maybe that was Bugs Bunny? I mean, it's hard to say. Tom Brady doesn't need teammates, right? He does everything completely on his own, right? But hey, you might as well throw him some teammates. These were just the names they added at the skill positions. They added some other depth pieces as well, before absolutely crushing their first 2 picks in the draft. Offensive lineman Tristan Wirfs, who can do this, good God, and safety Antoine Winfield. Never mind the pieces they already had. Arguably the best receiver duo in the league in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Arguably the best interior O-line in the league, with center Ryan Jensen flanked by guards Ali Marpet and Alex Kappa. An emerging defense with stars like Shaquille Barrett, Ndamukong Suh, Vita Vea, Levante David, and breakouts like Devin White, Sean Murphy-Bunting, and Carlton Davis. Throw in a 2-time NFL Coach of the Year, and all the ingredients were clear and present. Tom Brady had one job. Don't it up. And you know, occasionally stick a deep ball out there. It is a Bruce Arians offense after all. You've got Mike Evans, don't worry, he'll make you look good. He's only had 6 straight 1,000-yard seasons already without you. And yeah, that's what happened. He didn't screw up too much, and the Bucs improved their record from 7-9 to 11-5, which is much closer to where they should have finished in 2019. Consider this though. The Bucs added Tom Brady, Leonard Fournette, Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, and Tristan Wirfs to an already talented offense. And in doing so, the Bucs catapulted from 458 points scored in 2019 all the way to 492 points. 34 total points. 2.125 points per game. Hey, that's pretty valuable, I suppose. I mean, you got 3 Hall of Famers, a good Pro Bowl back, a too early to tell, but I bet he gets there Hall of Famer in Tristan Wirfs, but barely 2 points a game seems underwhelming. Their offensive ranking actually dropped from 3rd to 7th, but that's a bit more of a product of them being more efficient. So is 2.125 more points per game really worth 4 more wins? No, because their defense took the leap in 2020, going from 449 points allowed all the way down to 355 points allowed, 5.875 fewer points per game. And yes, I understand that a non-insignificant portion of that had to do with the offense being more efficient, but their ranking also jumped from 15th to 6th. That combined for a swing of exactly 8 points per game, which is the exact threshold for one-score games in the NFL. Remember those 6 one-score games they lost the year before? They got back 4 of them, and the majority of that lay in their points allowed, not their points scored. What then was Tom Brady's place in all this? Well, he had a role, but nothing spectacular. Despite being Tom Brady, did you hear me? He's Tom Brady! He wasn't elected to the Pro Bowl. I mean, how does the undisputed GOAT not make the Pro Bowl in 2020? There must be a massive conspiracy against him. Anyway, let's compare him to Jameis Winston. We've already discussed that Pro Football Reference's AV is far from a perfect stat. It is not the be-all, end-all, and it certainly inflates certain positions, chief among them quarterback. But hey, if we're going to compare quarterback to quarterback, then hell, who cares how bloated it is? We are on equal footing. Here is Jameis Winston in 2019 with the Bucs. Remember, he threw 30 interceptions this season. Just for reference's sake, Davis Mills and Dak Prescott tied for the most interceptions thrown in 2022 with 15 each. The two of them combined for 30, while Jameis did it all on his own. But he provided for value in other areas, and his approximate value at Pro Football Reference was 15. Now here's Tom Brady in 2020. He finished tied for 6th in interceptions thrown, while finishing in the middle of the pack in interception percentage. But he cut that raw number by literally 60%, from 30 all the way down to 12. He did just what was needed of him. He provided stability. According to the talking heads, though, he provided superstardom and was the sole reason why Tampa was headed to the playoffs. But check this out. His Pro Football Reference AV was 15. That, my friends, is the exact same AV as Jameis Winston had the season before. According to this metric, Tom Brady provided the exact same value that Jameis Winston did. So despite drastically cutting down on the interceptions, Tom Brady really did not provide an upgrade from Jameis Winston at all. Now, practically, we know this isn't true because of those interceptions. But again, according to this metric, it would appear, at least on a level, to be true. All of this settles in against the backdrop of the most asterisky season in NFL history. Home field advantage certainly took on a whole new meaning, as many stadiums were not allowed any fans whatsoever, while others only allowed a smattering. Certainly far from capacity. The only semblance of home field advantage lay in the fact that the traveling team could only arrive a day or so early before having to play the game. We'll cover that specific detail in just a moment. Tampa Bay did not win the NFC South in 2020, and therefore they took the number 5 seed in the playoffs and opened up on the road against the Washington football team. Now, there was a tiny bit of intrigue here, as the other 2 asterisk seasons in NFL history ended with Washington as Super Bowl champions. This Washington team? Yeah, no, that wasn't happening. They were NFC East champions with a 7-9 record. The game had 0 attendance. While Tampa had to travel, it wasn't exactly stellar competition they were going up against, and they won the game pretty handily. They then traveled to the Superdome to play New Orleans. Normally, this would be an extremely hostile environment with over 70,000 screaming fans guiding their division champion Saints forward. Not this time. The attendance figure in this game was 3,750, around 5% capacity. The Buccaneers defense harangued the Saints offense, forcing 4 turnovers, while Tom Brady completed under 60% of his passes for under 200 yards in the minimal effort required to win. But surely, let's give him all the credit. What followed was a trip to Lambeau Field, the frozen tundra. Around 80,000 passionate Packer fans rapidly guiding their NFC North champions forward. Nope. And nope. It was cold, yes, 29 degrees, but it was actually sunny. Sunny in Green Bay, Wisconsin in January. You would be forgiven if, watching the game without knowing the circumstances, you thought it was September. Consider the following season it was 14 degrees and snowing in the Packers playoff game at home against the 49ers. As far as the attendance, under 8,000. Not even 10% capacity. Tom Brady again completed under 60% of his passes, and while he hit for 280 yards, he buttressed that with 3 interceptions and a brutally dropped interception by Chandon Sullivan before the half that turned into a Bucs touchdown. Those 3 interceptions led to only 6 points from the Packers, thanks to the stellar effort of Tampa's defense. This incomplete pass from Brady on 3rd down would give the ball back to the penalty. 1st down, game over. Despite Tom Brady's best efforts to the contrary, Tampa would win the game and play in the Super Bowl. And where might you imagine was that Super Bowl going to be played? That's right, in Tampa, in their own home stadium. This exact same scenario played out the next season as well. The Cincinnati Bengals and the Los Angeles Rams played the Super Bowl at SoFi Stadium, the home of the Rams. But there is one major difference. This Super Bowl between the Bengals and the Rams was still treated like a neutral site game. The Bengals were allowed to arrive in Los Angeles well in advance, and the game was played to a capacity crowd. the Chiefs were forced to remain in Kansas City and had to deal with the travel normally associated with a visiting team, when the Super Bowl is supposed to be a neutral site. Tampa got to chill at home for 2 full weeks. As we know by now, the Bucs won this game with ease. The Kansas City Chiefs came in completely banged up, especially on the offensive line. I'm pretty sure Andy Reid called me at some point during the second quarter to see if I was available to play right tackle. But it was a slightly hazy evening. The Bucs defense again dominated to the tune of allowing the high-powered, Patrick Mahomes-led Kansas City offense to 9 measly points in front of a capacity crowd of fewer than 25,000 people, the least attended Super Bowl by far. Patrick Mahomes was pressured 29 times in this game and was generally running for his life. Tom Brady was pressured 4 times. Let's have a little fun with this. Let's imagine a body snatcher scenario where before this game, Tom Brady became the Chiefs quarterback with all of Patrick Mahomes' knowledge of the Chiefs offense, while Patrick Mahomes became the Buccaneers quarterback with all of Tom Brady's knowledge of the Buccaneers offense. Remember, football is a one-on-one game between quarterbacks with a bunch of backup dancers floating around as scenery. The tagline after this game was that Tom Brady beat Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. So, in this scenario, with the quarterbacks having switched, the Chiefs absolutely win this game, right? They've got Tom Brady! I can totally see him facing down a ferocious defense that pressured him 29 times and using his Olympic-level athleticism to get away and try to make something happen. Come on now, if this happened, would the Chiefs even be able to score a single point? Is it possible for a team to score negative points in a football game? Could the final score of this game actually have been Buccaneers 45, Chiefs -7? Back to reality. Tom Brady actually broke the 60% completion mark in this game, heroically averaging less than 10 yards per completion, along with 72 completed air yards on 21 completions against 104 intended air yards on just 8 incompletions. Absolutely stellar. With so many other better options available, of course, he was still named the game's MVP. And that was that. Brady is the GOAT, no questions asked. No, not a chance. On top of everything else I've already mentioned to this point, let's now take a look at this. The 2020 season was a mess, we've established this. While the NFL saw to it that every game got played, the circumstances of those games were drastically different. We already mentioned that farce that was Broncos versus Saints, where the Broncos started a practice squad wide receiver at quarterback. Other teams faced such injustices as well. The 49ers were forced to play Green Bay without any of their regular wide receivers. Big surprise, neither the Broncos nor the 49ers won their games, nor were they even reasonably competitive. Other teams, such as the Baltimore Ravens, were given extensions and had their schedule rearranged so that they could still field Lamar Jackson. They were given the opportunity to play on a freaking Wednesday. Not only did Tampa not face any such disruptions, but they were, by light years, the most intact team in the league this season. Check this out. Football Outsiders does an amazing job of tracking data. One of their most meaningful data sets is adjusted games lost. This not only measures how many games are lost due to players being unable to play in them, it measures the value and impact of those losses. Mike Evans missing a game is a bit more impactful than Tanner Hudson missing a game, and that is reflected in this metric. For 2020, the average adjusted games lost per team was 83.2. So how intact was Tampa? Wow, 30.6. The average NFL team lost almost 172% more games than the Bucs did. For further elucidation, the team closest to the Bucs were the Rams at 45.6 games lost. The next best team still lost just over 49% more games than the Bucs. As far as raw numbers go, the Rams were closer to Baltimore in 8th place than they were to the Bucs in 1st place. As far as percentages go, they were closer to Miami in 12th place than they were to the Bucs in 1st place. So an extremely talented roster with a 2-time NFL Coach of the Year and a quarterback who simply takes care of the ball that by far stayed more intact than any team in the league, won the Super Bowl that they got to play at home under traditional home game rules? Well, I should hope so. However, this argument is not over. We need to look now at the 2020 Patriots. This was the season that proved Bill Belichick is a fraud, carried to 6 Super Bowl championships by the Exalted One. Hell, we can even give Brady credit for Belichick's 2 other rings. Never you mind that Brady was 9 and 13 years old when he won those rings. He still gets the credit. He's Tom freaking Brady. That said, the Patriots certainly downgraded at quarterback in 2020, and drastically so. Again, we have never once argued that Tom Brady is bad at football. He's not irreplaceable though either, but his replacement certainly left the football world aghast. Yeah, that's Cam Newton the Patriots are trotting out there. Not this Cam Newton, this one. A shell of himself. He was horrific. 8 touchdown passes and 15 starts. 10 interceptions, less than 180 yards per game. In fact, all Patriots quarterbacks combined for 10 touchdown passes and 14 interceptions on barely 3,000 yards passing. Say what you will about Tom Brady, and I have, and I will, but he's better than Zach Wilson after all. And those are Zach Wilson numbers. But that's not the only thing. Remember when we told you that 67 players opted out of the 2020 season? A full 8 of those players were Patriots, including their superstar, should have been Super Bowl 51 MVP Dante Hightower. Whereas the rest of the NFL teams lost just under 2 players on average to opt-outs, the Patriots lost more than 4 times as many, accounting for nearly 12% of all opt-outs all alone. Oh, but there's more, so much more. Remember the Bucs absolutely crushing the top of these standings? Well, here are the Patriots in those same standings. 134.8 adjusted games lost. 134.8. 103.6 more than the Bucs. If they were ranked by how many more games they lost than the Bucs against everyone else's total games lost, they would still rank 25th in the league and be below league average by nearly 25%. In reality, they lost over 62% more games than the league average. They lost 340% more games than the Bucs. It's insane. Only the 49ers ranked below them, and they were so historically banged up that AMC approached them with an exclusive offer to star in their own spin-off show of The Walking Dead. We've already mentioned that Tom Brady, despite clearly not playing for the Patriots in 2020 and not being cut from the team, still counted $13.5 million against their cap, the 3rd highest on the team. We should also mention that Antonio Brown, who played with Tom Brady in 2020, but not as members of the Patriots, cost $4.75 million against the cap. In fact, look at this. Through dead cap money, injuries, and other airborne issues, the Patriots only had $103 million in active contracts for the 2020 season against a $210 million cap. They weren't even able to use half of their cap money for the product on the actual frickin' football field. Incidentally, Brady is gonna do it to the Buccaneers too. They took the same track in going all in to win Super Bowls, and they asterisked their way into one. But Brady isn't going to count $13.5 million against the Bucs' 2023 cap. Nuh-uh. he's going to cost them a whopping $35.1 million. That will be by over $11 million, the largest hit on the Bucs cap, hamstringing them to the tune of nearly 1/6 of the entire cap. And when the Bucs aren't nearly as good this season, they'll all say it's because of Brady. And they'll be right, but it won't be for the reasons that they think. Back to the Patriots though. We've already broken down their abysmal quarterback situation in 2020, their opt-out situation, their cap situation, and their adjusted lost game situation. But there's one more element to all of this. Bill Belichick is the best game planner in the history of the NFL. If you're good at something, he's gonna take that away from you. And moreover, he will have a way to stop your plan B as well. In the 12 Super Bowls that Bill Belichick has coached in, 3 as an assistant and 9 as a head coach, 9 times his opponent scored fewer points than their season average. One of those where they didn't, when Belichick was an assistant with the Patriots in 1996 against the Green Bay Packers, it saw that margin covered by a Desmond Howard kickoff return for a touchdown. What does game planning require more than anything else? Practice. Every team in the NFL runs regular practices, but none are more important than Bill Belichick's. That extensive game plan is implemented on a weekly basis and has on its own given Belichick so many of his near NFL record victories. Take a wild guess what the NFL took away from him with great regularity during the 2020 season in the name of its temporary protocols. Mr. Iverson?
But we talking about practice, man. What are we talking about? Practice? We're talking about practice, man. We're talking about practice. We're talking about practice.
To recap, the worst quarterback situation in the league, the most opt-outs in the league, the second most adjusted games lost in the league, functionally using less than half of their salary cap, and the essential stripping away from Bill Belichick's game planning abilities. Did this team even win a game in 2020? Well, yeah. They won 7 of them, 1 win away from a 500 season, despite everything blowing up right in their faces. How this is possible, I will never know. Wait, no. Actually, I do know. When I said that Bill Belichick deserved more than just 3 Coach of the Year awards, this was the season I explicitly had in mind. The NFL would never in a million years give the Coach of the Year award to the coach of a team with a losing record. But I defy anyone to tell me who would have done a better job than Belichick in this situation. The only one that would even have a chance of being close would be Pete Carroll. This team, under these circumstances, would have done well to win 2 games, but Bill Belichick got them to 7. Forget finding anyone who did a better job than him this season. This is one of the single greatest coaching jobs I have seen by anyone in any sports ever. But, no, cancel all that. I'm lying. Nope. The only reason the Patriots dropped to a 7-9 record is because Tom Brady left. Yep, that's it. Nothing to see here, y'all. Remember this strength of schedule chart? Yeah. In 2020, they finally didn't have a bottom 10 schedule like they did for 7 of the past 9 seasons. In fact, it was tied for 10th. But, Brady! By the way, the Patriots got back into the playoffs the next season. But by now, the Bills had emerged into a powerhouse, something they were incapable of doing during the previous 20 seasons, sheerly by virtue of Tom Brady having a locker in the Patriots facility. Man, that's some powerful voodoo right there. Last season, playing the 7th hardest schedule while in a much harder division than the NFC South, the Patriots finished 8-9. The same record as the Tampa Brady Buccaneers, while also outpacing them in point differential by 62 points. But, Belichick is a hack who is nothing without our Lord and Savior Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr., and he needs to be instantly fired. No. More than fired. He needs to be fired into the center of the sun. He is a stain on all of humankind. How dare he? How dare he lurch off our Savior's success? Off with you! What, then, to make of all this in the final analysis? I think I've made my point. Whether you agree with me, or whether you think I'm the real hack in all of this, that's up to you. I didn't manipulate any of these statistics. I haven't exaggerated anything, other than maybe my tone and sarcasm. I've presented the facts as they exist. If you still want to slobber over the Super Bowl rings and act like Tom Brady is the sole reason for all of those rings, then so be it. If you think short dump-offs and glorified handoffs disguised as passes make someone the GOAT at quarterback, I can't stop you from thinking that. Not if you still believe it after all of this. If you think his good luck hasn't dramatically outweighed his bad luck, that's fine. But here, in the final analysis, I would say that based on his longevity and mostly above average play, that Tom Brady is deservedly a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer. He was clearly competent, above average, sometimes even great at being a quarterback. But he's not the greatest of all time. He's just not. And he's not even all that close. And I will leave you with one final thought in that regard. When looking at other GOAT candidates, you can always answer a certain question. What could Michael Jordan do that others could not? What could Wayne Gretzky do that others could not? What could Serena Williams do that others could not? What could Lionel Messi do that others could not? What could Jerry Rice do that others could not? What could Lawrence Taylor do that others could not? Now, what could Tom Brady do that others could not? If your only answer to that question is win, then your argument has lost. He just isn't the GOAT. Saying that he is just lazy thinking. Don't be lazy. Whatever argument you may have had for him, I feel like I've refuted. If you do agree with me, thank you for looking at the bigger picture. If you didn't agree with me before but do now, then thank you for taking the time to hear me out with an open mind. And if you didn't agree with me before and still don't now, then all I can do is respect that, and also thank you for taking the time to hear me out with an open mind. To quote Forrest Gump,
and that's all I have to say about that.
And to quote Forrest Gump again,
I'm pretty tired. Think I'll go home now.
Oh yeah, YouTube algorithm shill time. Please like, please share, please subscribe, please ding the bell. Thank you so much for watching. I can't wait for the 2023 NFL season. Go Niners. Thank you all, and have an awesome day.